Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. We talk about Blu-rays here. We talk about 4Ks. We love physical media. And we're particularly fans of Kino Lorber. So today I have a large stack of Kino Lorber titles to talk about. We got a lot of 4Ks here. We got some Blu-ray premieres. At least one reissue that I'm really excited about. So let me get into this because there's a lot here. But we will start with some fun, snappy, cool stuff in Danger Diabolik, which is from 1968, directed by the great Mario Bava, starring John Philip Law as the titular Danger Diabolik or Diabolik. I can't remember if Tim Lucas was pronouncing it properly in the commentary based on the Italian pronunciation, and I can't remember what it is. Anyway, this movie has been issued on Blu-ray before. This is the, as far as I know, the 4K debut. But it is a really cool and stylish, I guess James Bond adjacent, sort of, but based on, I want to say it's like based on a comic book or something. Or it's supposed to look like a comic book, but now I can't remember. Anyway, very, very cool, colorful, as I said, stylish in that way that Mario Bava can really pull off spy film that almost borders on a spoof of itself, but is a lot of fun and looks really nice in this 4K. The suave psychedelic era thief called Diabolik, that's John Philip Law, who was, of course, in Barbarella, Death Rides a Horse, many other films. Can't get enough of life's good or glittery things, not when there are currency shipments to steal from under the noses of snooty government officials and priceless jewels to lift from the boudoirs of the super rich. The elusive scoundrel finds plenty of ways to live up to his name in this tongue-in-cheek, live-action caper inspired by Europe's popular Diabolik comics. So there you go. He clambers up walls, zaps a press conference with exhilaration gas, smacks a confession out of a crime lord while free-falling with him from an airplane, and pulls off the heist of a 20-ton gold ingot. Impossible? No, diabolical. Danger Diabolik, to be exact. And it's slickly produced by the legendary Dino De Laurentiis, who of course did Orca and the King Kong remake in 1976. Directed by the godfather of cult cinema, Mario Bava, who also did Planet of the Vampires and Black Sunday is really solid. I mean, there's Blood and Black Lace I'm a huge fan of. He did a ton of great stuff, and I'm a gigantic admirer of his abilities as a filmmaker and just the panache that he brought. Like, that's the word that I think of when I think of Mario Bava. Features a super swinging score by the maestro Ennio Morricone. Very cool score. I don't think ever got an official soundtrack release, which is really a shame because it is some really fun stuff. Co-starring Marissa Mell, Michael Piccoli, Terry Thomas, and Adolfo Celli. So this one is, like I said, really looks pretty nice on this 4K. It is a brand new HDR Dolby Vision master by Paramount Pictures from a 4K scan of the original camera negative. Includes an audio commentary by actor John Philip Law, moderated by film historian Tim Lucas, which is good. I believe this is either from the Scream release or Kino's previous release of this. It's not new. There's also an audio commentary by film historians Troy Horwath and Nathaniel Thompson. This is a little different, the John Philip Law, Tim Lucas commentary, because he is not doing what he normally does, which is basically a wall-to-wall, non-stop academic and otherwise just filled to the brim commentary. There's a little bit more dead air in this as he's sort of moderating with John Philip Law, asking him questions here and there, and then filling in the other time with his usual wonderfulness. But I did notice definitely some quieter moments in it, and I think that has to do partially with moderating and doing it a little differently than normal. The Troy Horwath and Nathaniel Thompson, always solid as a duo with their commentaries. Newly discovered outro, which is 3 minutes 11 seconds. This is all part of the 4K disc. Now the Blu-ray disc includes those commentaries, the outro, something called From Fumetti to Film, a 2005 featurette that's about 21 minutes long. Body Movin' music video by Beastie Boys with optional 2005 commentary by Beastie Boys Adam Yauch. 638, which was influenced by this movie, obviously. Theatrical trailers, and yeah, so that's your basic viewpoint on this one. Now, this is the 4K and the Blu-ray. This is the reversible artwork. I flipped it over. I like that cover. Is pretty cool. And, of course, you have both discs there. But, you know, this one's exciting and fun for fans of Bava and fans of spy films. I think you'll enjoy. Moving on very quickly to the next thing we have here. This is Deep Star 6. This film is from 1989. It is one of a group of films that came out around this time that were focused on underwater horror. I feel like, now I can't speak to the specific inspiration for this one, but both this and Leviathan and The Abyss all came out in the same year, and I can't remember which came first, but I'm sure there was certainly some anticipation for the James Cameron film that may have influenced some of these. I mean, Leviathan and Deep Star 6 are very similar in a lot of ways. I do think Leviathan is the stronger of the two, but I also think this is an interesting underwater horror. I'm just kind of a sucker for underwater horror, if I'm honest. And this one's directed by producer-director Sean S. Cunningham. Not All Aliens Come from Space, from producer-director Sean S. Cunningham, the creator of Friday the 13th and the House films, comes this action-packed underwater sci-fi thriller starring Torin Black from Hill Street Blues, Nancy Everhard from The Punisher, I guess, Greg Evigan, who we know from BJ and the Bear, but also My Two Dads. I think a lot of people know him from that. Miguel Ferrer from RoboCop, Matt McCoy from Man That Rocks the Cradle, Nia Peoples. They mentioned North Shore, which is a fun 80s Karate Kid ripoff with surfing. Cindy Pickett, who's in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I think she's the mom. And Marius Wires from the Gods Must Be Crazy. Far below the surface of the unforgiving sea, the daring crew of Deep Star 6 are explorers in a forbidding world of impenetrable darkness and unimaginable pressure. They have invaded the icy fathoms into which no humans has ever ventured. Their mission is to establish a top-secret Navy base on the ocean floor, but something's down there, and the crew of the Deep Star 6 are about to make a startling discovery. There's no escape from the terror of the deep. Deep Star 6 will plunge you into the depths of fear, save your last breath to scream. Yes, so this one, brand new HDR Dolby Vision Master by Studio Canal from 4K scan of the original 35mm camera negative. Looks, I mean, better than I've ever seen this movie look. I can't say I've tracked it since its, initial releases. I mean, I've seen it, I feel like I've seen it on VHS, and then I saw it on DVD and Blu-ray, so I don't know, it looks good to me. This has a new audio commentary by Horrorfix.com's James G. Chandler and Ash Hamilton. Then it has some older commentaries as well. Director Sean S. Cunningham and visual effects supervisor James Isaac. That's a good track. And with screenwriters Louis Abernathy and Jeff Miller as well. Isolated score selections and audio interview with composer Harry Manfredini. So, of course, Sean Cunningham used Manfredini for Friday the 13th. He came up with that very iconic sound that they would basically carry through the entire series. A composer I like, he did April Fool's Day. Was that him? No, maybe that wasn't him. That might be somebody else. Scratch that. Forget it. But no, I do like Manfredini, and obviously I know him for Friday the 13th, but the score here is solid too, and it's nice to have this interview with him. So that is the 4K. Then, of course, we get a Blu-ray as well, which includes all that stuff, plus From the Deep, interviews with creature effects and special makeup designer Mark Sjostrom, creature supervisor Greg Nicotero, and creature artist Robert Kurtzman. So K&B folks there. The Survivors, interviews with actors Greg Evigan and Nancy Everhard, as well as Water Damage, and interview with stunt coordinator Kane Hodder. So another Friday the 13th connection. Of course, he played Jason in at least one, if not more than one, of the Friday the 13th films. So he was stunt coordinator on this, which totally makes sense. Extended vintage interview clips, behind the scenes footage, etc. So I don't know if you're an 80s horror fan. I'm guessing a lot of people are kind of excited about this one. You know, like if you're like me and that 80s horror underwater boom got your attention, you'll be wanting to get yourself Deep Star 6. A little shift in direction here. We're moving on to Mouse Hunt on 4K. This one from DreamWorks. I've got another DreamWorks down the line here that will actually a couple that we'll discuss. This directed by Gore Verbinski, who of course did the Pirates, bunch of the Pirates films. Written by the great Adam Rifkin, but I'll touch on that in a second. This is a very unique. I guess it was a hit comedy when it came out. Unique in that it was not like anything I expected in 1997 when it came out. It's almost like a Looney Tunes cartoon in a way. It's two guys. Well, here, you'll delight in this hit comedy that's a rip-roaring, rambunctious good time for both kids and adults alike. The Birdcage's Nathan Lane and There's Something About Mary's Lee Evans played down on their luck brothers Lars and Ernie Smuntz, who don't think much of the crumbling old mansion they inherit until they discover that their dilapidated estate is actually worth millions. But before they can cash in, they've got to get rid of the house of its single stubborn occupant, a tiny tenacious mouse. What might seem like child's play becomes an epic battle of hysterical proportions. This mighty masterpiece was written by Adam Rifkin, who also wrote Small Soldiers, but did things like Dark Backward and The Chase. He did The Last Movie Star with Burt Reynolds. We had him as a guest on Pure Cinema years ago, talking about satires. Very, very interesting dude, and a very self-motivated independent filmmaker that I admire. Directed by Gore Verbinski, as I mentioned. Check out The Weatherman, by the way, if you're not aware of it. It's a very interesting Nicolas Cage movie directed by Verbinski. One of his one of the one for me kind of movies that he did in the wake of some successes he was having, because it's just a unique story about a weatherman who's having some trouble. Features Christopher Walken as Caesar the Exterminator. Totally forgot about that. So this is a brand new HDR Dolby Vision master by Paramount Pictures from a 4K scan of the original camera negative. New audio commentary by Hats Off Entertainment's Joe Ramone. That's on the 4K. The Blu-ray includes that stuff, plus from the cutting room floor deleted scenes, about 14 and a half minutes, and teaser and trailer and stuff like that. So not a ton of extras, but a nice looking new scan for Mouse Hunt, which, like I said, a little underrated. Walken looking pretty crazy in there. And Lee Evans I kind of miss. I do remember him from There's Something About Mary, and just how I was like, oh, that guy's interesting. And then, I don't know if he got into TV, but I haven't seen him quite as much since then. So anyway, moving on, another little shift here. We'll go to some classic cinema. We'll talk about Billy Wilder's Sabrina from 1954. It's, of course, remade with Harrison Ford and Greg Kinnear years later for Sidney Pollack. This one, of course, stars Humphrey Bogart, Audrey Hepburn, William Holden, Martha Hyer, John Williams, and others. Very much like a fairy tale story, and it kind of tracks because Billy Wilder definitely liked to do these takes on fairy tales, like his movie Ball of Fire, which he wrote for Howard Hawks with, I want to say that was with Charles Brackett. I think so. Might have been. He and Charles Brackett wrote that script, and that one's sort of a reworking of Snow White. And then Midnight, which just came out from Criterion, which I talked about in my Criterion Hall video. Really great screwball comedy that is a loose adaptation take on Cinderella. And this, seems like something along those lines in certain ways, but it definitely feels Cinderella-ish. Hollywood legends Humphrey Bogart, William Holden, and Audrey Hepburn star in this classic Cinderella story, directed by the brilliant Billy Wilder, who, of course, his credits include Sunset Boulevard, Some Like It Hot, The Apartment, many others. Bogey and Holden are the mega-rich Larrabee brothers of Long Island. Bogey's all work, Holden's all playboy. But then Sabrina, daughter of the family chauffeur, returns from a stay in Paris, all grown up and glamorous. The stage is set for some family fireworks as the brothers fall under the spell of Hepburn's delightful charms. Sabrina scored 6 Academy Award nominations for the year in 1954, including Best Actress for Hepburn, Best Director for Wilder, Best Screenplay for Wilder with Ernest Lehman, who of course wrote North by Northwest and many others, and Samuel Taylor. Vertigo, who also wrote Vertigo, based on Taylor's hit Broadway play, an Oscar win for Edith Head's iconic costumes. Provocative, romantic, bubbling with laughter, Sabrina is simply irresistible. It's a pretty straightforward story, but it does have that wonderful Billy Wilder vibe about it, so it's not any kind of throwaway. It's more memorable than that. I don't know. He's just able to really come up with these stories that last, ultimately. So brand new HDR Dolby Vision Master by Paramount Pictures from a 4K scan of the 35 camera negative. Looks very nice. New audio commentary by film historian Joseph McBride, author of Billy Wilder Dancing on the Edge. New audio commentary by film historian writer Julie Kiergo and writer-filmmaker Peter Hankoff. They're becoming a duo that I like to see listed on discs. They do a nice job playing off of each other. So that is what's included on the 4K. The Blu-ray includes all that, plus Audrey Hepburn Fashion Icon featurette, Sabrina's World featurette, Supporting Sabrina featurette, William Holden, The Paramount Years featurette, Behind the Gates camera featurette, and Paramount in the 50s retrospective featurette, as well as a Sabrina documentary. So a ton of features here from previous editions of this film. It's a really nice, all-encompassing special edition of Sabrina. Very nice, very enjoyable romance. So that is that one. We'll get one more classic film here on 4K. We've got Shane, directed by the great George Stevens, who, I'm just a really big fan of George Stevens, and I think that he gets a little lost in the shuffle because he's remembered for this movie, certainly, but he's also remembered probably for A Place in the Sun. Oh, and Giant, yeah. But then he's done a ton of other stuff I love, like Swing Time with Fred and Ginger, Vivacious Lady with Ginger and James Stewart. That one's only got a DVD, but a really hilarious, screwball comedy of meeting, two people meeting and trying to introduce them to the parents, and it doesn't work. It's hilarious. I love The More the Merrier with Joel McCrea, and this one has Jean Arthur and Charles Coburn. That's a wonderful romantic comedy. I would love a Blu-ray of that. Woman of the Year with Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. And his last film I really love, called The Only Game in Town, which is a gambling movie with Warren Beatty and Liz Taylor from, I want to say, like 1970. And I really like that one a lot. It came out on Blu-ray from Twilight Time years ago. I'm pretty sure it's out of print. But anyway, I like George Stevens, and I just think he's a little underrated for the breadth of good movies he made as opposed to a few big classics. But obviously Shane is one of those. So director George Stevens is Shane, legendary rendition of the archetypal Western myth, made Shane one of the enduring classics of American cinema. Based on Jack Schaefer's novel, the story brings Alan Ladd, a drifter and retired gunfighter, to the assistance of a homestead family terrorized by an aging cattleman and his hired gun, Jack Palance, in one of his great villain roles. In fighting the last decisive battle, Shane sees the end of his own way of life. Mysterious, moody, and atmospheric, the film is enhanced by the intense performances of its splendid cast, featuring Jean Arthur, again, Van Heflin, and Brandon DeWilde, who is the kid in this, and he's very good. Shane earned 6 Academy Award nominations for 1953, including Best Motion Picture, Best Supporting Actor for both Palance and DeWilde, winning for its now iconic Technicolor cinematography by Loyal Griggs. I totally forgot this was a color film. That's how long it's been since I've seen it, and it looks great on this new HDR Dolby Vision Master from a 4K scan of the original camera negative. I will say the ending of this film is is one that you can kind of read a couple different ways. And I was watching something really recently where they were kind of debating the ending, and how to read it. And, I think there's only one real right way, but I really do believe that it's neat to be able to read it multiple ways. Okay, so also included new audio commentary by author, film historian Alan K. Rode, a writer of the forthcoming monograph Shane, a Real West series book from the University of New Mexico Press. Well, that's cool. Two things there. One, Alan K. Rode, great on these commentaries and has a certain looseness sometimes, and just he can joke around a little bit while still giving out great academic, insightful information. But on top of that, he's got this new monograph coming, which I didn't know about, so that's neat. Audio commentary by George Stevens Jr., production assistant and son of the late director-producer George Stevens, and associate producer Ivan Moffat. That's on the 4K. Now, the Blu-ray includes that stuff plus nothing else. That is it. Just those commentaries, which is fine. Those are some really good commentaries to have, a lot of information given there, and a lot to glean from it. But this is a classic that's certainly deserving of the 4K treatment and looks really nice in said format. So that is Shane from 1953. Just a little sidetrack into Blu-ray for a second here while we're on Westerns, although this movie is not necessarily aping Shane in particular. It is a favorite of mine, and it is Rustler's Rhapsody from 1985. I think this is a really fun satire of Westerns, but it's such a unique mix of stuff. Now, this is from director Hugh Wilson, who apparently created WKRP in Cincinnati and then made Police Academy a couple years before this, which was a surprise hit for the studio for Paramount. Was it Paramount? Yeah, I think so. But anyway, no, that's a Warner Brothers movie. Never mind. But so this is the kind of movie that's so specific and so, whiffs of passion project that it's really neat and unique to see something like this even get made. Tumblin' Tumbleweeds, the Wild West goes wacko when the greatest fast-drawing, fancy-dressing, silver-spurred, guitar-playing, singing cowboy movie matinee idol Rex O'Hurlihan, played by Tom Berenger, hits the saddle in Rustler's Rhapsody, a cockeyed, affectionate send-up of the 40s B-movie Western. That is true, but there's other aspects here. Classic saddlebag stereotypes and cliches get turned on their ear when our fearless hero, fully dressed in white and atop his dancing horse Wildflower, rides into the tackiest town west of the Pecos to do good deeds and defy desperados. Written and directed by Hugh Wilson, who was responsible for hilarious Police Academy. The Rootin' Tootin' Rustler's Rhapsody also stars G.W. Bailey, who's in Short Circuit, but he's also in the Police Academy movies. Mary Lou Henner, they mentioned Johnny Dangerously, which I wish would get a Blu-ray. Andy Griffith, Celia Ward, Fernando Rey, and Patrick Wayne. So a really remarkable cast. So briefly, I'll try and be brief, but Rex O'Hurlihan is this cowboy. He is something like a Roy Rogers singing cowboy type. The movie opens in black and white and 4:3 and becomes widescreen in color, and it's as if he's entered into a modern Western film, but he has a certain self-awareness where he knows the cliches of Westerns. He knows the cliches of Western characters, and so it's really interesting to see how he plays out. It's funny and goofy and strange. Like, he chews this root, and it gives him like special extra powers almost. But anyway, G.W. Bailey plays the town drunk who explains, like, he gives everybody the lowdown when they come to town. He explains who the bad guys are. He explains what's going on in town, and he even says that as much. Like, you want to know what's going on in town? Basically, that's what he says. Mary Lou Henner, hooker with a heart of gold who doesn't sleep with men. Andy Griffith is the villain. Celia Ward is his daughter. Fernando Rey is brought in as another heavy, and Patrick Wayne is a little, thing at the end that's great. But yeah, it's sort of him trying to clean up this town, and he only shoots people in I'm talking about Rex again. He only shoots people in the hand. He doesn't shoot to kill. That's a running gag. There's all kinds of weird stuff in this movie, but I really enjoy it. I think it's very funny and strange and affectionate about the Westerns of the Poverty Row Studios, it feels like, or the very B Westerns, as it says. This is a brand new master from a 4K scan of the 35 camera negative. Now, this movie's never been on Blu-ray before, so this is really exciting that it's getting this new scan and getting this Blu-ray release. It has a new audio commentary by my friend Heath Holland, who's from the Serial at Midnight YouTube channel and podcast, with Max Allen Collins, the author of Road to Perdition. But he's written on a lot of other stuff as well, and they have a nice conversation about Westerns, about this film. Very nice track. That's the only extra included here, but a nice one to have. I'm just really excited to have Rustler's Rhapsody on Blu-ray. I just think this movie is really underrated, especially for 80s movies, and a really nice performance from the great Tom Berenger here. So anyway, that's a highlight, one of my picks of this whole group. So back to DreamWorks. They had a nice little run in the late 90s, also from 1997, like Mouse Hunt. This one directed by Mimi Leder, who did Deep Impact, among other things. This one stars George Clooney, Nicole Kidman, Armin Mueller-Stahl, Holt McElhenney, who you'll recognize from other movies recently, Randall Batinkoff. This one is interesting because I didn't remember it that well and didn't remember loving it, and I liked it a little more this time, I think. George Clooney and Nicole Kidman strike sparks when they join forces to stop a nuclear terrorist in this explosive action adventure. When a train carrying atomic warheads mysteriously crashes in the former Soviet Union, brilliant U.S. nuclear specialist Dr. Julia Kelly Kidman discovers that the accident is really part of a diabolical plot to cover up the theft of the weapons. Assigned to help her recover the missing bombs is crack Special Forces Colonel Thomas DeVoe, and that's Clooney, whose brash, take-no-prisoner style clashes with Kelly's more diplomatic approach. Putting aside their personal differences and their budding romance, together they race against time as they track the last remaining warhead to the steps of the United Nations in this taut, apocalyptic thriller directed by Mimi Leder and co-starring Armin Mueller-Stahl. So this is one of the early Clooney, big star movies, as I recall. And, one of those sort of breakouts for him. And like I said, it's a enjoyable thriller. This has a commentary from film historian Steve Mitchell and Nathaniel Thompson, as well as a new audio commentary by film journalist Lawrence Lerman. That's on the 4K. On the Blu-ray, those tracks plus stunt footage, about 5.5 minutes from the cutting room floor, deleted scenes, only about 3 minutes. So not a ton of extras ultimately, but we do have some nice commentaries included here in this new scan, which looks good. So good stuff from DreamWorks. And one more slightly lesser DreamWorks movie, but nonetheless, Road Trip. Now this one is from 2000. So I rewatched this. It had been a long time since I'd seen it, and didn't, if I'm honest, like it quite as much as I did back then. But it is a goofy premise. I'm just going to see how much is revealed here. Comedy legend Tom Green brings his outrageous brand of humor to this raucous tale of four college buddies who party hardy on a road trip Peter Travers of Rolling Stone calls a wild, whacked-out ride. Josh, that's Breckenmeyer, has a major problem besides the fact that he's in college in Ithaca, New York, and his longtime girlfriend Tiffany is in Austin, Texas. A video of him getting funky with the luscious Beth, that's Amy Smart, was mistakenly mailed to Tiffany, and now he has 3 days to get to Texas before the tape does. You could get whiplash from laughing so hard, says Good Morning America's Joel Siegel, about this riotous raunch fest from the year 2000. Featuring high times, hotties, and a hit soundtrack with Kid Rock, Run DMC, and Buck Cherry, as well as the Eels. Hilarious cast includes Sean William Scott, who they list from the rundown, but obviously we know him from American Pie films. DJ Qualls and Fred Ward, who plays DJ Qualls' dad. Directed by Old School Hangover, War Dogs, and Joker mastermind Todd Phillips. It's a pretty interesting setup, this idea of pre-internet communication, pre-text messages, more or less. Breckenmeyer's character is sending these videos to his girlfriend as sort of video diaries. And he just happens to leave the camera running. I can't remember why, when he starts making out with, maybe Amy Smart actually starts it. I can't remember, but that's just the kind of thing where you just got to go, okay, I'm going to put this tape as far away from any potential area where it might get mailed, and that did not happen. So anyway, this has a new audio commentary by Hats Off Entertainment's Joe Ramone on the 4K. It is a brand new Dolby Vision HDR master of the theatrical cut by Paramount Pictures from 4K scan of the 35 camera negative. Now, on the Blu-ray, we have an HD master of the unrated cut, and then that same 4K scan of the theatrical. So you have two cuts, but only one in 4K. The commentary's there, as well as Ever Been on a Road Trip behind the scenes featurette, which is about 5 minutes. Eel's music video, Mr. E's Beautiful Blues. It's a good song that's included in the film, about 4 minutes. Roadkill deleted scenes, about 11 minutes. Trailers, and that's it. So if you're pining for some late 90s, early 2000s raunchy comedy, Road Trip is here to help. My other pick of this group is this film here, which is I'm Madman from 1989. This one is just become a real favorite of mine. It's just to me, a little gem of a horror film from the director of The Gate, Mr. Tibor Takis. And there are things about it that put me in the bag for it, two of which stars Jenny Wright, who of course was in Near Dark and The Wildlife and did a few other movies, but not enough, and she's Out of Bounds with Anthony Michael Hall. She's delightful and gorgeous, and I just wanted more movies with her, so the ones that she did do I really cherish. But it also stars one of my faves, Clayton Rohner, who was in Modern Girls and April Fool's Day and Just One of the Guys and The Relic. I mean, he's in tons of stuff, and I just really like him as sort of the everyman, slightly elevated everyman type dude. In this case, he plays something a little different. He plays like a detective cop. But the idea here, bookstore clerk Virginia, that's Jenny Wright, loves to lose herself in a good novel, but when she cracks the spine of a horror pulp called I Madman, she conjures the book's monstrous author/villain Malcolm Brand, played by Randall William Cook. As grisly murders begin to occur around her, Virginia finds it difficult to distinguish fact from fiction, even more difficult to convince anyone that the hideous character is real. Brand, who reconstructs his disfigured face by carving away the flesh of his victims, is one of the more memorable horror villains of the 1980s, the decade that gave us Jason, Freddy, and Chucky. Director Tibor Takis cleverly frames Brand's appearances in De Palma-style set pieces, doling out shocks and suspense in careful measures, making I Madman an unforgettable cinematic page-turner. It is that really great kind of, is it real, is it not, fiction coming to life when read kind of movie. It has some cool stop-motion animation in it, and I do like Clayton Rohner as the boyfriend who is trying to believe her, wants to help her, but is also a reasonable cop, and is kind of bound by that a little bit. So this has some old stuff and some new stuff as far as I can tell. Audio commentary by director Tibor Takis and actor and artistic supervisor Randall William Cook. I think that was on the Scream Factory release. This is a disc this is one of the reissue I was talking about, because this came out from Scream Factory. Ripped from the page is The Making of I Madman, featuring interviews with Tibor Takis, actor and artistic supervisor Randall William Cook, screenwriter David Chaskin, and actors Clayton Rohner and Stephanie Hodge, as well as behind-the-scene footage with commentary by Randall William Cook. I think those were included on that disc as well. However, I do believe Much of Madness, More of Sin, a visual essay by Chris O'Neill, is a new feature, although it's not listed as new. But I don't remember that being on the previous release. So that I would believe is new. But also, this, if you hadn't gotten this Scream Factory, doesn't list any new transfer, unfortunately, but it is out of print and hard to get, and that was troubling to me because I do find this to be one of my favorite Scream Factory releases, so it's nice to have it as part of the Kino cult line now. Really an interesting and enjoyable horror film with a high recommendation from me. One more horror film to talk about, this one from the 70s. This is Kino Cult. That was 31. This is 32. Sugar Hill from 1974, which stars Marky Bay, who looks like Pam Grier on the cover, but it's not Pam Grier. Robert Quarry, Don Pedro Colley, Betty Ann Rees. Pray You Never Cross, a woman out for revenge and her squad of zombie hitmen when a black nightclub entrepreneur gets taken out by the mob. His girlfriend Sugar Hill, Marky Bay, calls upon the voodoo high priest Baron Samedi to summon up the undead to carry out an unholy plan for revenge. Packed with horror, action, and loads of 70s funk, Sugar Hill will slay you, also starring Robert Quarry, who's in Madhouse. Audio commentary by film historians Howard S. Berger, Steve Mitchell, and Nathaniel Thompson. Audio commentary by director Paul Maslansky. I know this came out, I want to say it was like Code Red. I don't know that it had all this stuff. I'm pretty sure it didn't have that first commentary. I'm not sure if it had a second commentary. Interviews with actors Don Pedro Colley, Richard Lawson, Charles Robinson, and director Paul Maslansky are included here. No notes about the transfer, but nonetheless, sort of a cult item and a fun blaxploitation horror film. A few more here. We have a very older classic here called Law and Order. This one from 1932. Now, I will note that this is memorable because in my travels doing the podcast for the New Beverly for Pure Cinema, we did cover a month wherein, this is probably like, I don't know, 6 months ago now, maybe less, wherein Leonard Maltin asked if he could host a series of films that he had pulled from the Paramount vault. Is this a Paramount? I can't remember now if this is Paramount or if it's Universal. It's Universal, my bad. From the Universal vaults, these rare films, many of which hadn't had much in the way of home video releases, and this was one of them. And of that group, I think this is probably the best of them. This stars Walter Houston, Harry Carey, Andy Devine, Raymond Hatton. 4K restoration by Universal Pictures in collaboration with the Film Foundation, so that's very exciting. Law & Order is a rip-roaring Western that explores the wider myth with a screenplay by legendary John Huston, the Maltese Falcon. It stars John's father, Walter Huston, who of course was in The Treasure of Sierra Madre, as Frame Johnson, a thinly veiled stand-in for Wyatt Earp, who takes the marshal job in Tombstone, Arizona, and soon comes into conflict with the corrupt Northup gang, leading one of the earliest and most thrilling depictions of the gunfight at the OK Corral. Brilliantly directed by Edward L. Kahn, who did It, The Terror from Beyond Space, among others, and co-starring Western icon Harry Carey. Law & Order is a true masterpiece of the genre. So we've seen this Wyatt Earp story told many times. I mean, I can think of several that I enjoy. But this isn't one of the earliest of it. And I don't necessarily think it's the first, but one of the earliest. And it's a cool one. Like, I like this story. I like this cast. I like this version of this story. Some nice stuff here in terms of extras. We have Without Honor, a bonus film from 1932, a Western starring Harry Carey. That's 60 minutes, preserved by the Library of Congress. So we get a bonus movie. Plus we get a commentary by Max Allan Collins and Heath Holland again. And they actually make reference to this commentary in their Rustler's Rhapsody commentary, which is fun. So there's that, and then we have another audio commentary by film historian Toby Rohn, who had a blog called 50s West. Was it 50 Westerns from the 50s? Something like that. 50s Westerns is what he focuses on, and he's just a Western expert, so it's a good thing for him to cover, as well as a conversation with film historian Bertrand Tavernier about Law and Order. So obviously a film that influenced some filmmakers too. But this is a really cool one because, again, it hasn't really had much in the way of a home video release, and it's a really solid Wyatt Earp tale. Just a few more, folks. We have Promise for Anything. Now, this one had been off my radar. This is from 1966, starring Warren Beatty, Leslie Caron, Robert Cummings, Keenan Wynn, Hermione Gingold, Lionel Stander, one of the great voices of cinema of the early first 30 years. Blondes, brunettes, redheads, babes are no problem for adults-only filmmaker Harley Rummel, Warren Beatty. But a baby is nothing but one comic complication after another. When the attractive single mom, Leslie Caron, Gigi, finds out the pediatrician, Robert Cummings, she's sizing up for the altar, hates kids, she leaves the baby in Harley's care, and that sparks a riotous, romantic free-for-all. A sharp script by Shot in the Dark and Exorcist writer William Peter Blatty and delightful direction by Arthur Hiller, helmsman of such classics like Love Story, Silver Streak, Out of Towners, and The In-Laws. Keep the sizzling romance and zany gags zinging along in this laugh fest, described by Time as an amiable, entertaining fiction. Beatty, in his first light comedy role, shows an unexpected flair for foolishness, featuring the swinging title song written by Hal David and Burt Bacharach and performed by Tom Jones. So this one's got a lot going for it. That cast, I like Beatty in this period. Just the William Peter Blatty script and Arthur Hiller, definitely had those movies listed. I do like, so, hoping this is one of those good ones. Brand new HD master by Paramount Pictures from 4K scan of the original camera negative. New audio commentary by film historian, author Dwayne Epstein. That's all that's included on this, but it does seem like kind of a little unknown film getting a nice release that I'm excited to check out. All right, a couple documentaries, which I do love documentaries. This one from 2003, The Wild Parrots of Telegraph Hill. This is one I've been dying to see forever and never got around to, and it just sounds so delightful, and I'm so excited to check it out. Now this a new 4K restoration, which is exciting. New 4K restoration from the original 16mm negative by producer director Judy Irving, with the assistance of the Academy Film Archive. So that's very cool. But this is the way to see it. So, classic feel-good documentary, The Wild Parrots of Telegraph Hill, has molted its feathers and grown new plumage in the form of a 4K restoration. It tells the remarkable true story of a bohemian, St. Francis, and his loving relationship with a flock of wild red and green parrots. Mark Bittner, a homeless street musician in San Francisco, falls in with the flock as he searches for meaning in his life, unaware that the wild parrots will bring him everything he needs. Listed by Rotten Tomatoes as one of the greatest nature documentaries of all time. Again, new 4K restoration from the original 16 negative. Very exciting stuff. Assistants of Academy Film Archive, Gary Coates and Sarah Lemery, CEO of Mickaboo Bird Rescue. So a little plug for Mickaboo Bird Rescue there. Archival audio commentary by Mark Bittner, the author of the Wild Parrots of Telegraph Hill book. We have updates, I guess, on the birds, outtakes, deleted scenes, interview, music videos, short films, lots of stuff included on this disc. So this is from Kino Lorber proper, and one that I'm very excited to check out very soon. And one more I haven't had a chance to look at, another documentary that sounds really promising to me from 1973. This is The Blues Under the Skin. In the early 1970s, during a resurgence of interest in the Delta blues, celebrated music documentarian Roviros Manthoulis traveled to the Mississippi Delta to capture on film the remnants of the authentic American blues, filming intimate conversations and stunning performances by such legends as B.B. King, Buddy Guy, Sonny Terry, and Brownie McGee, Mance Lipscomb, Buka White, and Roosevelt Sykes. Manthoulis explored the emotional and sociopolitical factors that make the blues the most expressive and haunting of musical forms. Blurring the line between documentary and fiction, the Blues Under the Skin dramatizes the tumultuous relationship of a young couple, Onika Lee and Roland Sanchez, as they struggle to overcome the barriers of poverty and prejudice that keep them from finding happiness together. Virtually unseen in the U.S., the Blues Under the Skin is a thrilling rediscovery and untapped cask of musical performances that document not only a range of vanishing musical forms, but provide a priceless glimpse of a vanished culture in the 1970s South. So this has an audio commentary by film historian Daniel Kramer, interview with director Robert Manthoulis that's about 29 minutes, deleted scenes about 9 minutes, featuring performances by Big Boy Crudup and Willie Dixon, as well as the original trailer. So this is an exciting one, a movie that apparently has not been seen in a while, and with all those folks performing in it and the whole documentary fiction, line crossing, it sounds really interesting to me, and I can't wait to check it out. Anyway, thanks for hanging around for this Kino Lorber collection update. I'll be back with more stuff next week. Thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.